Tene Tatari Chinamba Kanganji Tene Tambichu Goni Pete Dolling Davo Sheju Chunga Pe Kalvazambo Chunga La Tene Kangala Tahideli Hujutan Tene Tekendula Tanda Jitang Sanig on the Sena Ne Cheparjin Tene Jerdo Jang Kamapa Country Chudupa, Tene America Sanela, Gombazo, Tene to Ihichungo, Tene Tanda, Tahigomong Cheti, Sane Danala, Yang, Pe, Tutapa, Yihi changes if ne, Cheparjin, Bechenan, Danala, Teningarange, Chu, Chekone, Chenambakangala, Dervache Chumala, Pe, Gavuchama, Tujiche, Tahideli Huin.
I feel very fortunate to meet you all here and to talk with you about the Dharma. And likewise, in terms of the place that we're doing this is a wonderful place. This is the 16th Karmapa passed away in America, and then his remains were put in, and the essence of his wisdom was put in the stupa here, the Tashigomang stupa. And so this is a place where the Karmapa is always looking with his eyes of wisdom. And so I would like to thank you all very much for this opportunity to make a Dharma connection with you. So thank you and Tashi Delek.
Tene Tati Jeso Naranso Tujin Tarto Dojin Chuntum Sonde Jay Dankre La Tene T Capsula Zaulamaton Jipelamaton Chila Tepatam Muguchi Sorvata Narochi.
And next, we will, as usual, recite the Dorje Chang prayer, the short Vajradhara lineage prayer. And as we recite it, please have great faith and devotion in the root and lineage lamas. Dorje Chang
Tene ta tanda jirdu longma kashi la ta ngarangi shaja chimbu ke koru de hyubare. Tene ta de hyugu pe junsen ya tanda jirdu ta shaja chimbu de ta di kapso tene ta yarji ta dembe lumba la mekanga leka mambu yuware la. Tene leka mambu yuwa na ya thambi chuwe de yu yuwa na dhigi ribese na dhigi yuwa maare la. Thambi chuwe de nyamlin che ne ta susu ke mesi ke dhalam de yu yuwa na yung dhigi ribese na yung dhigi yuwa maare la. Tene di susu ke mesi ke netang ke leka tang tene thambi chuwe ke nyamlin nyi de nyamdo jar tupa de chebar tumpa pati ta tanda jagar ke tutu chimpo tongchi chi sumbe mengo shaja chimpo di shindu pentu chewa ta kal chewa ndabu chay tene ta di kapsula pe miksal ke pentu chimpo ye pandabu chay jongni shaja chimpo kor di len mangbo hyubare la tene di talu ke kap ndana la tene tanda nguma shaja chimpo tele tese ta sungtong tang nyamlin she tang tese mandawa 다 로마 강가게 냠네 나나 데스 조아치아완다고 야 데스 인저완다고 정나 야보 용절에 섬네 두톱 첨부 통통 잡고 그 소신 가우마디 휴주 고디 제바레라 드네 다데 인두 데라 드네 드링 값소 두톱 첨부 통통 잡고 로주동 남타른다고 제 히나 소만다고 강가게 섬찬다고 정나다 드링 디코르데 휴이
Over the past many years, I have often taught about Mahamudra. And the reason for teaching about Mahamudra is that at this time in a country that is highly developed, everyone has a lot of work. Everyone is really very busy. And you might wonder, well, is it okay just to quit all that, throw that all away, and just do meditation practice? But really, that's not okay. We can't do that. And then you might think, well, give up on practice, throw that away, and just do work, and is that okay to do that? And that's not really okay either. What we really need to do is we need to find a way to combine our work, our jobs, and our Dharma practice. And really, the best way to do this are these instructions on Mahamudra. This is, as we can see from the examples of all of the great Mahasiddhas, the great meditators from India. They have these wonderful Mahamudra instructions that are really very beneficial and very important. And so that is why in the past I have really thought it is very important and taught Mahamudra quite a number of times. But this year when in teaching Mahamudra, I thought that it would be good to teach a text that is a little bit different, that presents it in a different way, using different words, with a slightly different way of doing the practice. And the reason is that this will help all the students have a sort of different approach to it, a different feeling or taste from the practice. And I thought that would be good and helpful for people. And so that is why I have made the preparations now to teach you all this Amulet Mahamudra by Thangtong Gyalpo. So that is what we will be studying this year. But today I thought that it would be beneficial to talk about the history, about the spiritual biography and life of Thangtong Gyalpo. So this evening we will go over the life of Thangtong Gyalpo.
Tene teya tongtong jabuge ta tambi chuge gone nzeba jong kortan tene tambi chu dan tenbe gone ta ngaranso jerdo zombuleng sani mixal ge beje sani ge chen ne jin ji tin ta tene na ji ji sen jin la 펜베게 제바 나와 된조 되네 레 되네 도공그 값소 되네 담배 추근 제바 조마인바 되네 단다 되네 신내 동농지라 펜베게 되네 담배 추당 템베고니 신내 동농지라 펜벤 제바다 틀레 가리 정와데 Corte, Shona, Pento Chimbondo, Sone, Memombuga, some channel for the Johnson La, Tene Johnson teacher na, Tanda, Tene, Tanda, Tonton Jabuga, Zeba, Tamandawa, Karinangayaba, Tetan, Te Yendo, Tanda, Tene, Tonton Gyalpo, Maimba, Ta, Huma. 자가르네 베토 담비추 따라와래라 드네 담비추데 다르네 담비추 냠서 예 드네 데리엔도 띵엔자인 감네 드네 틀네 담비추게 틀네 자침보 섬지마 잡아 망보지 정료와래라 De Maimba Tombi Chu go ni Jitang Ta Jitin Chekomla Pemba Tejendo Ta Semchin Kanani Main Jitin to Jipa Namlaya Pento Chimbu Chua Main Jitin to Jipa Maimba Tundrug Senchin Laya Pento Chimbu Chua La Sopata Tindig and Zepatam Trinik Korea Yore La Tene Tato Gong Kapsu Hia de la Jerdo Tambichu Tarne Tene Tan Sine Dononki Sentin La Candis in Pento Jachimbuchum Corta De Nane Mixalge Tanda Tutu Chimbo Tonto Jabuge Tene Ticorla Shale Kan Corte Ta Desinda number Niga Goni Hugi Sambata Johnson.
Thangtong Gyalpo performed his activity both in terms of the Dharma and also not directly the Dharma, but through other activities that were in accord with the Dharma. Now, these are activities that are in general beneficial for the world. In particular, they are were beneficial for the place of Tibet. They were beneficial for the external world, the environment, as well as for what that contains, the sentient beings contained within this. And he did many beneficial actions during his life and did a lot of work to benefit many people. And so this evening, what we will be talking about is not the Dharma activities primarily, but rather how he, in a way that was in accord with the Dharma, worked to help sentient beings and to help people become more prosperous. And so I thought that it would be helpful to discuss this, and many people have also asked me to discuss that. And so for that reason, we will talk about the many different types of activities of Thangtong Gyalpo. And likewise, this is not something that just Thangtong Gyalpo did, but rather when the Dharma spread from India into Tibet, there were a great many people who practiced the Dharma, who developed excellent meditation and did many excellent deeds and activity and very beneficial things. But there are also other ways that they help, not just in terms of pure Dharma practice, but ways that they actually helped the world through their Dharma practice. How they helped the world, how they helped sentient beings. How they would help the sentient beings who are in this human world, and how they helped various animals, and then likewise how they helped the world and the environment. And so there is this topic of how all these activities helped sentient beings in the world. And so today we will talk about, in general, how this benefit occurred when the Dharma spread, and how this helped the Dharma, the world, it helped beings, and helped people become more prosperous. And in particular, we will talk about the deeds of the great meditator Thangtong Gyalpo. So we have these two different sections.
Ta sanji jiten batarwati ta tanda turab ga ont sena turab damba jepa guba ta tende la jagar ge yuni jurwata tene pege chimsi ge jalka tene janot ni jurwata tende mangbu yore la tene tikap sula tene yenting nguni na tombe chu ge yenting ngi zontul tuta tene pe ten tupa tingen zen Shangpa Kagyu ta tende ke korla pe yapo tende perji tangne dige pento jachimbo chongyo re la ta tikapsla chimsi ge yudru tenzo la kyan chembo yore kahin jeksurwa tende yore jeksurwa kande yore sena jagar la tene turab damba ta jepa goba tenzo ke kabla tene perna tene chokati hisona di chumati di roda nyamda metrata yogu pata tende lusul tromo lusul jigsro tende ya yore te yinaya tambi chu di rinpa yindula tene ta lozawa to gewiki ni tenzu ge jorgundu chu ge yentin de ta peto darware mato tene jiten ge jonlam ngamba tenzu yapo songtoba tene ta peto mitchik tende ge jitwa jinge netsul tende jongyebe lo jundraba yomare la tene te yendo tanda jagarne payundrabu jeyena tene tige jagarlaya tige lusol jeksurunga te yorela te payulaya te tar horware re te yenaya tene peg lama tutup ta lama chishin tamba tenjuge yentin te yentin ki chani tene pedo tartuba jeyta jente jehimbala ngohin jente kotba 다 텐데 추게 생각세나야라 라마 게위키니 탐치게 투제던 누바 옛나야라 아드네 강타리아 티젠라고 다 텐라와라소베게 젠테 자니 다르마쇼로와 데니 디가슬 메원 쳔보 톱 쳔보 카히 텐데 렌스그레데 옛나야 디젠테 자니 휴마쇼로와 송토바 잡토바 텐데 정요래
If we look at the time that the Dharma spread in Tibet, it was primarily in the 7th and 8th and 9th centuries that it spread from India into Tibet and also into the neighboring countries. Also, it spread into China. And they also in Tibet, they received some teachings from China at about this time. And when they took these teachings in Tibet, they took the good parts, they took the qualities. And in terms of Dharma, there were many lamas who were able to develop clairvoyances, miraculous powers, wonderful meditation, and great love and compassion. And these are wonderful qualities that they developed. It was actually great that this happened, and it was a very wonderful benefit for many people there. But if you look at the neighboring countries around Tibet, there are also many terrifying and fearsome practices in those countries, many real problems and bad things that they did. For example, if you look at India, at that time of the 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries, there was the custom that when a husband would die, then the widow would be thrown alive on the funeral pyre and burned. And so there was that custom in India, but when the translators translated Tibetan, when the lamas translated the Dharma into Tibetan, when they brought the practices to Tibet, they picked the qualities. They took the good practices, but they did not take these terrifying bad practices, evil practices or faults. So they looked at the world and they saw, in worldly terms, they saw that these are problems and faults, and they did not bring them to Tibet. And so for that reason, if you look at the history of Tibet, you see that there is not a single story of anyone being subjected to such a terrifying situation as that. If you look at how it happened in other neighboring countries that neighbor on India, you see that it was not like that. In Nepal, for example, this custom did happen. It was widespread in India, and it also happened in Nepal. But because of the Tibetan lamas and the great practitioners in Tibet, they took the qualities and the aspects that are qualities. They spread. But those that were faults, they recognized them as being faults and stopped them from happening in Tibet. So you might be able to say that this is the blessing of the Dharma, or you might be able to say that it's really the influence and the compassion of the great lamas. But if we look at it, we see that this fault and these aspects that are faults did not spread into Tibet. It is, of course, possible that there were powerful people who would have thought of doing such a thing, but it did not happen, and the great lamas, the great translators and practitioners were able to prevent it and to protect and help the people.
Tene ta te yendo chimsi ni ba te sharshu gong ni jono yorela. Jono gong de siena ya tene jitang jono ni tombe chu kahi juru na yorela. Tene ti masi ba ge tan jiting ge on de siena perna kuchin rabuta tene kayu rabula peche tang rabuta te yendo chantu rabu 다 자디 지당 그 전원에 따라와래 되는 후마 자갈라 자요 말해 라 되네 산지 좀 된데 샬기 버갑라 ndulwa게 남도 성나 게혼 텐주게 되네 이야 힌도 그 코안다보다 추었다 다 된데 제마도 잔 히피 로지 자와니요 말해 라 되네 자디 베드 따라와디 전원에 따라요 tini joji padin atisha pet pepe kapsula tini pela jantung juye pati tini rabdu shungwa tamchi ke sonomri tini jagala ina ti jantung juye mare sungwa re la te tabi tini che jana ni yala tini chimsi ke yudrini zambu ki chatin su ya tini jana ni suru tempa re la temparete yinaya ngembe ki chani ondsiana dikapsala jonala lusul dupo tindi injeksuru mambu yore karire sena jalbu photang ke nyekorla thinking ke lembo tenzo teni ombo nyam chupala subata bata teni tejendo jona ke pomo tenzo komba koi ke tomni komba chunchun so ka pandabo tende ke pe lusul dupo teni mese kombola dungal la jargu bata tende ke chepangem batende mambu yore la ti ke lusul kangche teni pela tari horio mare la jona ke yentinti dembare mato chengi chati koto bate ta yin tabhi no bana yin marete yinaya thambe chu ke yin dam dembe gone tene ta lozawa ta lama chi sin tamba tenju ke labja la tene te tabu ke jante uma hirwa tene chung yore.
Tibet also received some Dharma from its other great neighbor, from China. And when you look at it, it not only received Dharma from China, but in worldly terms, Tibet also received many other things from China. There was silk, they were using cups, tea. Tea is something that spread to Tibet from China. There did not used to be tea in India at all. At the time of the Buddha, if you look at the scriptures of the Vinaya on monastic discipline, there is discussion of monks drinking fruit juice and water and things like that, but there is not a single mention of tea. So the tea spread to Tibet from China. And when Atisha came from India to Tibet and he saw that they had tea to drink there, he said, "Oh, this is a great fortune for Tibetan monks that they can drink tea. We don't have this in India." And so this is something that they received from their neighbor in China. And likewise, this is similar to India. This is a situation where they took the good things from China and they took the qualities of Chinese tradition. But Chinese tradition didn't just have things that are qualities. There are also very harmful traditions, very bad traditions that were prevalent in China at that time as well. For example, there was a custom that all of the ministers who lived within a certain radius of the emperor's palace had to be castrated. there was also the tradition of binding the feet of young girls so that they would be hardly able to take a step. These are really terrible traditions. These are really harmful traditions that caused an awful lot of suffering for many people. These are very bad actions. But if we look at what happened in Tibet, not a single one of these bad traditions spread into Tibet. When the lamas and the translators took traditions from China, they took the good traditions. And they stopped all of the bad traditions. They stopped all the faults and problems. And so in this way, they helped really develop the Dharma and develop education and things like this. And they did not allow any of the faults to happen in Tibet.
Tene ta tejendo tambe chugo on the siena tene chitank mrabje lo jatra ni tongtra ke partu tene ta te tambe chu ti chong are la chong ne manyampa ta tende chong ate tene depe kapsa sembe lama chising tambata gewi kini mambu garden la tene lo jatra ni jatra ka partula nyam mahirwa tanda maze tanda tangaranso nujug yudru tenzo la ya tarju ya pate di kapsula tene kepa tang tuto chimbo tenzu ki chong tupala tene chong are mato di kap tana la mrab kaki ki onda nyam hyor sana tene tanda lo yu za mato mepa ya njur sik rete ina ya tanda ngaranzo ta je lama gewi ki ni tenzu ki loma tso la chu he ju ya pa je ta loma tso ke chu te nyam su len ju ya pa ke ko kap zambo te ya kandi chi ni chong are se na ta lama gewi ki ni tam chi ki tene la tene chong are.
We can also look at it in terms of the Dharma. The Dharma is something that stayed present from generation after generation to generation. It was present for hundreds upon thousands and thousands of years. And so the Dharma has been able to be preserved and maintained without disappearing, without weakening during this time. And this is really because of the kindness of all the lamas and all of the spiritual friends of the past. It is because of their kindness and their activity that the Dharma has been able to remain with us for century after century after century without weakening. And now, it is because of this, it is possible for the Dharma to now spread throughout the entire world. If you look at why is it that now the Dharma is able to spread, it's because the lamas and the great scholars and meditators of that time were able to protect the Dharma. If for perhaps one or two generations they had not been able to protect the Dharma, then the Dharma would possibly be just something that we would read about in history books. It wouldn't be something we could practice. And so this is really because the lamas and the spiritual friends were able to teach the Dharma. And then the students were able to practice it. And so here, this has all happened because of the activities of the lamas and the spiritual friends.
Tene ta tejendo tanda mixal ge tutu chimbo tongtong jabu ge on tse na tene khong ge nzepa tang tene mandawa tene chitang ge kutse rintung ge on tse na ya ta tanda namtar che ge nang la gundong jada nishitsanga yubare sungge yore tene namtar kaki ge nang gundong jada nga chutamba yore sungge yore kantarya tene me palpata mandawa ta kusi rimbola yuk ne kong truba ne tene tutop ge nzepa mambo ya nang yore la te yendo ta jitin je kom la pembe ge tene ge on de je na tene ta tanda jazang ta namtar ge nang de so no jazang a chinga ji zuk na yore song yore la tene jazang tenzo pe ta ti kap la tinde ge hiro yomare la tene chitang ge pe ge 산이가 온듯이나 드니 초 텐조 눕니 샤르도 초 텐조 름바 yendarla 다코라 사타가 온듯이나 로기요아라 드니 초제 갈두 야 산이 yendarla 렙고 반다보 다디 갈두 테라 드니 지당가 다베 장기초라 드니 다제 구비게 요지 드니 발당 드니 마르당 추라라소바 드니 베 로그초라 로 넘블라소바 다딘데 요아레라 드니 파츠 세알라 베 칼레카보 요아레 디나네 미살게 다 야롱 좀본다보지 나베 추첨보 드니 디긴 참지니 드니 배 장초 그자라 된소 로쇼라 렙 못봐 드니 배 로쇼 그자라 된소 장초라 렙 못봐 드니 잘라 갈티 드니 냥칼라 만셈버성나 드니 카갑칼라 메야 소젠로아 갑칼라 든도 센진 소젠로아 다 딘데게 냥카침보 요레라 드니 데레 잡비처돌라 드니 콩게 다 지당게 추라 추망볼라 자상 아직 아니죠 대나니 미살도 양종볼라 자상 다 자상 바세 자상 단다 금바세 콩리게 댄사용 드나 요아레라 드니 드나라 자상 잡네 드니 벨라 비 반조르 다 소은 틴치나 비 펜토 쳔보 정요아레
And so among these lamas was the great practitioner Thangtong Gyalpo. And so if we look at Thangtong Gyalpo, he really did many different things in his life. If we look at the length of his life, according to one biography, he lived 125 years. Some other biographies say that he lived for 150 years. In either case, this is a very long life that was unlike ordinary people. And so this was a very long life. He was alive for a very long time, and because of that, he was able to become a great meditator. And then through becoming a great meditator, he was able to do things that were really, many things that were very beneficial. Many things that were very beneficial for the world and for the people there. In fact, one of these is that he constructed iron bridges. So the biography says that he constructed 58 iron bridges. Now, at that time, there were not many bridges in Tibet. If you think about the geography of Tibet, Tibet is crossed by several major rivers. And these major rivers, you can look on a map and see, they flow from the west to the east. And so if you manage to get across one of these major rivers, then eventually you're going to come to another of these major rivers, and you'll have to cross that one as well. And so there may be things in the north of Tibet that you need to get and trade in the south of Tibet, and it is very difficult to do this. For example, in the north of Tibet, there was a lot of wool, there was cheese, and butter. Now, in the south of Tibet, you had a lot of wheat and blankets. And so you needed to trade these things back and forth, but that was extremely difficult because you'd come to the edge of the river and then you would be hardly able to cross. It would be very difficult to get across. Or if you did decide that you were going to risk it and cross it, it was a very risky thing to do, very dangerous. And many people lost their lives, many animals, many livestock lost their lives in doing this. There was a great danger for this. And so in order to protect people from this danger, Thangtong Gyalpo made these bridges. He made these 58 different bridges. And the main one that he made was near his own monastery in Yarlung. So he made this this bridge there and then the rest of them. And this activity was something that was really very beneficial for Tibet, both economically and in terms of people's safety.
Tene ta tejendola kashi jazang zu masu patenzola druhin tango se druhin zona warela druhin tango tene tanda namtarga nongdo sona druhin tango jada jobji zona wares jada jobji tege tene jala ta metenzo pachu tangdu pe ta sochen mayongwa 대견도 생긴 된줄라요 소재마중와 배 소잡토바다 되니 반조를 lonje 틴진 배 분섬초 받는데 정요하래라 되니 드힌 땅국에 템바 나랑게 메셀라야 디냠뇽 정뇽라 간디리세나 당아 그마 나라 로쭈지 그따이네 되니 단다 라사네 되니 소미 Samine yalung ta tingma pedo tambe chu taroge ne tenzola ne korundro nyonga ti kapso tangbo ta lasane samilando kapso chuje galgu yor chotela jeshu sege yor lasi tangbo sege yor te hachang gajin chembo yor hachang ge chembo mare la tene titrodi te chodi galu kapsala tene ko ala zupu tuji yore tene tige nang la tela ndodu tela tene ngarang la tela kesata ti kapsala motanta bota tende khanya yo mare la ta ti khahi ji yore ta ti tenzo tene chuchi bi sola le du tro tene ke jab na ya tene mege 왕예 땅에 다파 되니 파쪽 백니 되니 적놈 마 총적 되니 적놈 총적 나야 다 코란서 쪼니 슬로자 되니 다 갈리만 보자 양양자도 파 적놈 쭉 야추 두효다 된디니 니마테 디쪽설라 되구죠 되니 베 되니 따디 된서 쪼 되니 지마 쪽도노네 타파 따라 타바다니 트릭 되니 디갑스로 따라 베 지도 첨부 다 되니 저지 잡 된데서 추파를 리드베 따힐라 같은 데리도요
다시라
힐라카 힐라카 세그레바 다시 조조는
하르제
된데리도요 알라 된데게 니마니라 나란서 깔리 잡 된데신도 조구주마레 다 되니 성인이 잘 산네 되네 가난도 그랬어요. 야롱도 그래. 야롱라 텔레 치와지 장보지 요래. 장보대 제쇼다 되네 따조 감밥 생긴 띠니 dom니 추첨보지 요래 텔레. 뭐마 텔레비 더블게 체그래. 더블게 체그래 데 이나야 텔라 통통 잡고 좀 잡고 주신 땅고 요래. 되네 주신 땅고 요래라. 주신 땅고 그나란도 주텔라. 되니 다 된소다 지 된소다 매 된소다 잘라 된소 강가 디날 파죠 냠도죠 단다 저 갈사리 주세지 그 전에 주파를 다다 매다 강갈래 사리 다디 통도 잡을까 되리 선바도 된데 정요하래
It wasn't just bridges. Also, he invented rafts. He invented rafts in Tibet, and they called them square horse-head wood things, basically. Rafts is what they are. And he made 118 of these rafts, and these were wonderful because they made it very easy to cross rivers and any waters, easy to transport goods and livestock across without any dangers. And so this is really something that really protected a lot of people. It protected a lot of beings and saved a lot of lives. And it was also very beneficial for trade and the economy. And so these rafts were really very important. And I actually saw this with my own eyes. The reason I saw this is that when I was 11 years old, I went on a pilgrimage. And on this pilgrimage, we first went to Lhasa. Then from Lhasa, we went down to Samye. And then from Samye, we went over to Yarlung. And we saw all these different places, these sacred sites where the Dharma spread in Tibet. And so this is a great pilgrimage. Now, when going from Lhasa down to Samye, we came to a river called the Kechu. And when we got there, it was a big river, but not a huge river. So it was a good-sized river, and now the only sort of boats that they had there were leather cockles, little leather boats that could go across. And it was very difficult to get things across in these little leather cockles. This is a time before there were any cars or anything like that. So what we had were a lot of horses and a lot of yaks. And so we had to get these actually across the river. And when you led all these animals down to the side of the river, they got really frightened and terrified, and they started whinnying and neighing and mooing and all this stuff. And it was like it was almost impossible to get them to go in the water. You tried to tie them and pull them in the water. They wouldn't go. And made a lot of noise, a big racket. And they were just terrified to be able to do this. It was really incredibly difficult. We eventually had to tie ropes around their necks and lead them across the water. And it's like they're almost about to drown in the water before we got across. And it took one day doing this and had to wait an entire day while this happened. And then there are still more horses to, tie and get across. So what do you call the thing that you lead the horse with? Halter, yes. Tie the halter and pull them across. And it ended up taking us 2 days to cross this river. And then we went and we visited Samye. And from Samye, we went to Yarlung. Now, on the way from Samye to Yarlung, there was another river. And this river was even larger. It was perhaps even twice as large. But this was a place where Thangtong Gyalpo had made a raft. And so we were able to load all of the horses on the raft, all of the yaks on the raft, all of the things and all the people, and we went across the river, and it only took an hour. So this is really something that was very wonderful for all the people and wonderful for all the horses. And really, as we were crossing, I was thinking, this is all the kindness of Thangtong Gyalpo.
Tene ta tendabuge tangarala nyomnyong troje chongare tendabuge trojada jobji tela ta tende kanga mela pemba ta senkin la pemba tende chongyore la tene te yo mazi tene tanda yalung changbola jazang chubuka sala ta jitang ge Thangtong Gyalpo te panjur longje chembo ta top dong arong chimbo tende mare shadal dreamy to yunkin che la tene khong ke tene mela cha long tene tela cha ka along dong tene ti cha tha so tela samba cha la tene kap che la long la ma ju ne cha tha te chi chor tene makanga thang chi ta cha sang chu thu mare cha sang chu ju te temi re sin makanga tene dru chor tende re du tela tene khong ka thakila tene hlamo pain dai sinking che tene hyadro ja tene hyadro la makanga temota tene tepe hyadro ti yafondo makanga ta du tenzo hlamo nang hindo sin tene main la yo pege achi hlamo se thore achi hlamo se thore la tene ti tanda hyadro ta dogar tenzo jang tene ti ge chur makanga nzom tene yang jar to chazang chak ne tene chazang te thar chamba chung lo ju ro ta tende yore.
And so this is my own personal experience with one of the rafts that Thangtong Gyalpo made, but he didn't just make one, he made 118 of these. And so these were all very beneficial for people, they've been very beneficial for animals. But it wasn't just a question of doing this, doing bridges and rafts and things like this. When Thangtong Gyalpo was building the iron bridge at Yarlung, the Thangtong Gyalpo was not a wealthy person, a wealthy, powerful landowner or anything like that. He was a simple, poor yogi. And so the way he had to make these bridges was to go and beg for iron. and he would go beg for iron, and then they'd have to take all the iron and bring it down and make the bridge. And sometimes this is really difficult, and people got really exhausted. They'd be unable to keep doing the work. They'd say, "Oh, this work is just pointless. We don't need these bridges. It's no use to all this." And so Thangtong Gyalpo had to figure out a way to cheer them up and encourage them. And so he came up with an idea. Let's put on a show. And he said, let's have some song and let's have some dance. Let's start doing Tibetan opera. And so they did this Tibetan opera. They put on the show. It was a show about, and they sang and danced the show. And everyone said, "Oh, they're doing this so well. It's just like they're goddesses." And so that is how Tibetan opera got its name of Hlamo, which means goddess. And so it's Achi Hlamo in Tibetan. So this is how he started Tibetan opera. So he taught people how to sing, he taught people how to dance, and then got them all together, put on a show, and then got more iron and made more bridges.
Tene ta te za ma imba tene kong bege art ta chetin la tanda nam tar ga nam so man chetin jada chuchi tene chetin tenzo la ya chitang chetin kyuma da mandawa Kepa, Zepa, Tene Pela, Tene Nang, Rumotenzola, Pe Tumoma in Bechiton Demba, Tene Sani Mambola, and Chetin Tenzo Yana Yorla, Tene Chitanga, Tata Ti Capsulina, Tene Petzam, Pelayan Chetin Yan Yorla, Petzam Maimba, Nuda, Lada. La sopa ta tindeg sani mambola chetin yani tene makanga ge chepa purhipa sonum ju tsu sa hipa tene ta tanda tambi chu go ne tene njong yinba tene ta te ta bu ge sonum ge tsu zo pten tinde mambo yin nang yore.
He was also a great patron or a great figure in Tibetan art. He constructed many stupas. According to one biography, it says he constructed 111 different stupas. Now, these stupas were not just your ordinary, everyday sort of stupa either, but many they're beautifully decorated, beautifully ornamented stupas. They had drawings and paintings on them that were really unlike others and really very beautiful. And it's not just one place or two, but in many different places that he built these. And he built them all over Tibet. And not only did he build them all over Tibet, he built them in the neighboring countries like Bhutan and in Ladakh. So he made these many stupas that became supports for people to be able to make offerings, for people to be able to gather merit. And so this is one of the ways in which his activity happened, that he really made all of these wonderful supports for people to gather merit.
Tanda ya Ndrup la Petna, Ndrup Padula, Tanda Thangtong Gyalpo Yenga Pinchetin, Yore la, Teniti Njalna, Talo Jarap Mobukon Yenga Pinchetin Reti Inaya, Chi Yip Nang Rumo, Tenzo Yen the Mandawa, Tanda ya Pe Hale Gupandavuta Tindi, again Chetin, Yore, the Tanda Thangtong Gyalpo Rangi Yenga Pa, Tindi Chetin Jalju Yore.
Some of these stupas are still around. If you go to Bhutan, there is a stupa that Thangtong Gyalpo constructed that you can see yourselves. And so, of course, it was built many years ago, but if you look at it, the outside is still beautiful. It's a beautiful shape. The paintings on it are really beautiful. It's really got a feeling that is really special, a very distinctive feeling, and it's really actually very amazing to see this stupa. And so you can actually still go and see this stupa now in Bhutan and really see something that Thangtong Gyalpo himself made.
kunsam nana kusirimbo yung krese lungting ja yore la dig chatla padu ta song la pen kunsam nang re kunsam nang hyor do tene nganzo hyapchi tenzo tene tongtong jabu ke tandan cheting jarwa la song tene nganzo kahi te dila chambore hidra hibga manjarwa je tene tika sala tengaram bochi yore la chenzo tende dila chambo kare re song gompa song 현재 tinti rumo yapo jeju yapati manjalwa tini tila kare
So I went to see this stupa. I went there with the 16th Karmapa. The 16th Karmapa went to Taktsang, the retreat cave at Taktsang in Bhutan, to do a long life retreat. There had been a prophecy that if he went to that cave and did a retreat, then he'd be able to live a long life. And so he went there and did the retreat, and sort of on the side, we decided to all go and see this stupa that Thangtong Gyalpo had made. And so we went to see the stupa, and we were going there, and some of us were in a real hurry, and we just sort of looked and then wanted to go along. But Thanggu Rinpoche said, "What are you all in such a hurry about? I mean, how many chances are you going to get to be able to see such a beautiful stupa with such amazing drawings? Why are you in such a hurry to go away?"
tini ta te tabu ge hanze patan tini chong yore la tini ta tambi chu ge on de se na ta tanda jabji kalur mbuche la sopa zor zepa te ge ngaran so nuchu la tambi chu pelwe ge thoma la kare pel nang yore se na trup thong thong jabu ge tanon la chung dodan kacha ma se nambo nangne tini tigen dodan kacha mate tutu tong jabo la jinri se ge longting ne dan digo ne dodan siena tini maungpalang dodan jachimbo yungre sone longting na yo la te longting na chulya tutu tong jabo tini papa jinri se ge nyamlin na yu de pekapsala konggan dan pumba je yo la pumba ti je la tang ngaran su pe la matam ji le ya pa yin dondong Mahasiddha Thangtong Gyalpo Mahasiddha Tain la tene jinri zai chatong jintong jai tiwo la jinri zai juji hyal jai tiwo la rondul chai ki pa jai tiwo la jinri zai ta hyal ji chai ni pa jai de jinri zai yeg tene hyal zai ne tene mahompa la rodan kachap ma tanda jinri zika gomdi dupa di tay ne tene rodan si na tene pento chenpo yungre senjin mambo la rodan ja chenpo yungre sone lungten na wa te tan papa jinri zi te tanda tutu tong jabo to yerme banda boche sene tene tanda ngaran so tanda jabji kalur rinpoche la supa lama chishin mambo ga rodan kachap ma tay ne rodan zi ne tene tanda ngaranzo nusho laya chu tar tini te jaisena ta sanje to chongchu semba tamji ge tini re de jaisena tini tutu tong jabro ge tuji ta silanda bujire.
And so Thangtong Gyalpo had many activities like this. Now, if we also look at it in terms of the Dharma, when primarily Kalu Rinpoche and other lamas were spreading the Dharma in the West, what is it that they first used to spread the Dharma? They taught the practice of Chenrezig, of the being for benefit that pervades, the benefit for beings that pervades space. So this is the primary way that they spread it, through this short practice of Chenrezig that we all do. And this practice was composed by the great meditator Thangtong Gyalpo. So he received a prophecy from Chenrezig himself that if he taught this practice, that in the future it would bring a vast amount of benefit for many sentient beings. So the way that this happened, the way the prophecy happened, is that Thangtong Gyalpo was doing Chenrezig practice. And in front of him, he had a vase. And on the vase, he had, on the top of it, there's like all, you have on all the Tibetan lamas always have, you know, the peacock feather on top of the vase. And so on the very tip of that peacock feather, he saw the thousand-armed Chenrezig. And then below that, he saw the 16-armed Chenrezig. Below that, he saw the 4-armed Chenrezig. And then below that was the Chenrezig with... Oh, sorry, not 16 hands, it was 16 faces. The 16 faces... Shao Chuchi. Ah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Totally. The 11-faced Chenrezig. Wrong limb, wrong number, sorry. The 4-hand, and below that the 4-armed Chenrezig, and below that the 1-faced 2-handed Chenrezig. So the 4 different forms of Chenrezig above this. And these forms of Chenrezig told him that in the future, if you teach this practice of the being that benefits beings pervading space, then this is something that will be really very beneficial. So this is the short Chenrezig practice that we all do, and it really is something that has been very beneficial for all sentient beings. So this is because of Thangtong Gyalpo. Actually, Thangtong Gyalpo and Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig, are indivisible. And so it's this practice that then Kalu Rinpoche taught, that he taught in the West. And it's through this practice that the Dharma has been able to spread throughout the world. And so we can look at this and we can say, maybe this is the kindness and the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Or we could also look at it and we could say, it's because of the blessings and compassion of Thangtong Gyalpo.
쇼제니 세나 다단다 군로자다 니상가이나 군로자다 앞치tamba이나 콩 유바레라 유발라 테네 다단다 라마치신 tam바 투투 제버진 탐지가 고나 통통 잘보테 ngombo chepo 미징고도 이르메바임바 델라 테네 단다 라마치신 tam바 망부게 테네 다 멜라 징이 parti hyögi cheto chepa mega onom grela chepa mega on par chewati tangjal chewonse tene tuto tongtong jabotan ngambo chepa meni yerme pege tutapla tene wante na ta ti wana wala tene nekap che on tsena tene jingi tong parti hyowata tene tanjur ton tembe melurumbo chete reintun soa la sopa ta te la pento chembo yungi yorela ta de lama jishin tamba mambuge penna jang kama pa kundin chuduba chorsipe lama jishin tamba mambuge tenis me mambola tene kap la thomla ono kap la konza gerla ono tende na kap sala jengi tong parchi hewe chedola tene ngambo chepa mega ono ge warela chepa mega on de par chewate tene tangjal chewonse tuto tong jabo to yerme bege tene wante 나네 드니 파치도 쟁이 살로게 답난기 와래
Another way we can look at it is that Thangtong Gyalpo was incredibly long-lived. You know, some accounts say 125 years, some say 150 years. And so many different lamas think that actually Thangtong Gyalpo was indivisible in essence from Amitayus. And so, in general, when most great lamas do the long life empowerments, and they give an empowerment of long life, the one that they give is what is called the Thangtong Gyalpo long life empowerment. This is the empowerment for a practice where you visualize Amitayus and Thangtong Gyalpo as being indivisible. And so, by giving this empowerment. In the short term, it helps pacify many difficulties and problems, and it helps us extend the length of this precious human life that we have. And so this is something that is really has been very beneficial. And this is what many lamas have done. Primarily the 16th Karmapa. The 16th Karmapa gave this empowerment to many people. He would give it to great crowds of people. He gave it to individuals. And he gave the empowerment, the long life empowerment of Amitayus frequently. And when he gave it, the primary empowerment that he gave was this long life empowerment of the Thangtong Gyalpo long life empowerment. And it's through this that he helped really remove the obstacles to long life.
도공 저와 나나야 되게도라 야한테 두세라고 매나 산이 나니 저와 나나야 되게도 간디 나나야 저와 난기나 저와 진이 나로 나요.
So that is enough for this evening, but we do have some time for a couple questions. We have a little bit of time for questions this evening, and we will have some more time for questions in the coming days. So if you have a question, please ask. We've got time for 1 or 2 questions tonight. Yes?
Was he born realized, or did he practice so much that he came to realization to become such a great master and benefit for all beings?
The Thangtong Gyalpo ne tambor ane ku trumpe kaso ne top karze ne keshin lama keshin dambo rabo ne yana ane nyamso lang de topa ke ne mis ascension tamla pembat jongya
ta tela jitang ngaranso ge kon topa jin re sama topa jin mare samne ta ji hiya I meban rabo ji re te yinaya lama jishin tamba mangbo tene 당보네 또바지 바마인바 당보 수수지오 타말베 남발라 tene tambi chunyamne na tene rimbe tene 또바지 버지 tuto chepar지 중 로주 rel라 tene 단다 tuto 통통 잡고요 대다 인지레 perna 제전 말라리 남tarta베 예나 tene 콩가 로마초게 효나 다체 당본 제파 틀리 가나테나야 데네 상지게 뚫반다고 장주 셈베 뚫반다고 인사를 마도 메타말바 마리 메타말바 마인바 디처나 데네체 상지에 강거 뚫바이 장주 셈바이나 장주 셈바 강거 뚫바이 땡안졸라 숭루나 디성나 대반 페르기 조시에게 se ya hyudu tela jesun mala ripi ke sauna cherang chu nga sangje tang changju sembe trubare sambate nga cherang chu lama yimbe on da tona cherang chu depa tong mu gi pare de tambe chu go on de sena cherang chu ti lota tiar lota ti junsen kare sena tini sangje tang changju sembe trubaji mato tambe chu ti mese tela tini 다 top ni sanji pi nipa yo mare sambanda lota yo tare sumarela junsi teacher na kon namba chitang tangbo kontumbe ka sala susuji we namba tawla tini rimbe top nam tarte na yo re.
Of course, it's really difficult to say, oh, he's realized or he's not realized. But there are really quite a few lamas who at first did not have any realization, were just ordinary beings, and then practiced the Dharma. And through their Dharma practice, they eventually became realized beings. There are many stories of this happening. And Thangtong Gyalpo is probably among these stories. Among these people who was at first an ordinary being, then practiced and became realized. If we look at the example of Milarepa, for example, there's the story in this of how all his students, towards the end of his life, said to him, oh, when we look at all of your activities, all of your deeds, there's no way that anyone other than some emanation of a Buddha or some emanation of a Bodhisattva could possibly have done these. These are not things that an ordinary person could have done, they said. And so for that reason, please tell us, if you're not the reincarnation of a Buddha, whose emanation are you? If you're the emanation of a Bodhisattva, which Bodhisattva are you the emanation of? If you tell us, this will be the cause for us to develop even more faith and devotion. And Milarepa replied to this, well, if you see me as a Buddha or as a Bodhisattva, in terms of me being your Lama and having great faith and devotion, that's fine. But in terms of the Dharma, actually it is a wrong view. It is a real misunderstanding. Because if you think about it that way, then it makes it seem like other than Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, emanations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, no one can really practice the Dharma or get any benefit from it. It's as if there's no power within the Dharma for anyone to become a great practitioner, a great meditator, and awaken to Buddhahood. So this is really a sign of a wrong view, is what Milarepa said. So if we look at Thangtong Gyalpo, Thangtong Gyalpo is someone who was born as an ordinary being. And through his Dharma practice, he became a great meditator and achieved real realization.
Yeah.
In visualizing 1,000 faces, would that be considered vast view? And how does one develop seeing 1,000 faces and then 11 below?
The Chatong Chentong ane mipa chebe kaso da ne gom chebe kaso de mipa kena the Chatong Chentong gi mipa de ane cha ane kaso chitong yaro de kaso tawa gya chembo gi aka de mipa che gi nupa de kaso tawa gya chembo gi ta bu yana ya ane de ane mipa de kareke ge dos de tambor de kaso de mipa che 지당 칼카포요로 가서 미망쳐 제도금도 제토여디 간대체거도
제토여디 다단다 지당 그 처몽보 당 진몽보 검톱나 검 드니 때 검마도 나처 동진 동요 선바도 보지신 드니 칼리 비 검톱 그 느반다고 용그래봐 당분 검톱 말이 손이 요모가 봐지
It's 1,000 arms. I think I said it unclearly when I was translating. It's 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes on Chenrezig. And in general, when you visualize this, at first it can be really difficult to visualize this. If you can visualize 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, then that's great. But if you can't, you can just sort of think, there are 1,000 arms, there are 1,000 eyes, and just think that way, and that's fine. And then gradually you will be able to you'll be able to do the visualization. But you shouldn't think, there's no way I can visualize 1,000 arms and just give up on it. So that's enough for this evening. So sunim de rabo. So